To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. Okay, so I'm back at the tiny house build again today. I've done a lot of work already this morning. Usually when I start my video, it's before I get my day started. But it is just downright cold this morning. It's 19 degrees. As soon as I took the camera outside, within a few minutes, the battery died, which was good because then I got to focus on this very complicated panel on my metal siding here. As you know, I spent the last 2 days putting up 2 panels. I'm not rushing this. Just be clear, I want to be absolutely sure that every cut I make is perfect. And so far, I've done pretty good. I mean, I've had to cut out this little tongue thing and the window and the angle up here. It's been quite challenging. But today's panel, I didn't even realize it was going to be that complicated until I got up here and I started looking at it. Oh my goodness, this thing's terrible. So the first thing I got to do is I got to measure out the angle. Well, what I've been using is a little temporary panel here. I just put it up so I know how wide my panel is. That helps me figure out the angle on this side and the distance and all that, so you get your triangle. Well, when I got the panel up there, I immediately realized, oh, well, I don't know how far it is off the ground because that panel's way over here and this panel is way over here. Might be hard to understand, but this is the complications I've had this morning. So I had to figure out a reference point. I had to figure out, well, I don't have the window because the panel comes out past the window. So what I did was I took my level and I just stuck it in the J channel. And that gave me a measure point. I can use the bottom of the level, which would act as the top of the window, and I can measure straight down from the edge, you know, up to the soffit plate, all the way down to the bottom of the level. That gave me my first angle. That down to the window, that down to the level. Great. Then I realized, oh, wow, I got to cut out a huge portion of the window because the panel comes out to about here. So it's coming from here to about there. So I got to cut all that out. Then I have to come down to the tongue again. And like I did here, I have to cut out a hole. And underneath the hole, I'm going to have to cut out a strip so I can pull the panels apart and get it around the tongue. Now, here's what's really crazy, is I have to put the panel up. Now think about this. I got to get the panel around that, and then I got to get it around 3 sides of a J channel. I got to get it around this side, the top side, and the edge. Normally what you would do is you would just slide your panel in. But I can't slide the panel in because that's in the way. That's got to go in first. So really I'm going to be tugging and pulling, and I'll probably bend the metal a little bit trying to get it in there. I can't cut the panel because if I do that, then I'll have a nasty looking seam right over here. Then I realized, oh yeah, my panel is going to be too long because I measured, when I bought my paneling, I measured from the peak all the way down to the ground. Well, if you notice, this panel is 4.5 inches away from the peak, so that makes it lower to the ground. So I thought, you know what I'll do is I'll dig a trench, and I won't worry about the bottom cut. But I just kept digging and digging, and I still, after a good long ways, I still don't think I got enough. And I thought, you know what? I'm already going to be fighting the window, trying to get the panel in there. I'm not going to sit there and try to fight the ground either. So I took a measurement from the bottom of this panel all the way up to the peak, and I'll make that cut. So I finally got everything transferred over to the panel. Now remember, you have to do this all upside down. The thing is the panel is directional. I've said that in several videos now. This tab has to come on this side of the house. So the flat edge here, see there's no tab there, you don't see a tab. That's got to go over the existing hump of the previous panel. That way when you screw in the top panel, you're screwing in not only the top panel, but the bottom panel also with one screw. So you do everything backwards. So you got to get it laid out so you can picture it in your mind that you're going to lift it up and you're going to turn it over. So you got to picture that in your mind. So this edge right here is where you got to start. So you'll see that I have my angle drawn out. I have my window drawn out. You can see the chalk line. I did a pencil line here. I don't know if you can see that, another chalk line. And then inside the truck, you might see that I've got a pencil out of the tongue there, 2 chalk lines. I haven't actually drawn the chalk line on the bottom here, but I got 4.5 inches here marked out that I got to cut off. So there's a lot of cutting to do today. And the thing is it's so cold this morning that when you take my gloves off to do all these measurements and use the pencil. So I've been going down to the Franklin wood stove down there, opening up the door, putting my hands in the stove to warm up my gloves, keep me warm. I had hoped to get 2 panels up and finish this wall today. But with this many cuts and it being so cold, I don't think I'm gonna get to do that. So that's all right. I'll just work on it some more tomorrow. It's supposed to warm up next week, which is great because I still got one whole wall to do. All right, so I'm gonna get busy with these cuts. Okay, so I've cut out this monstrosity. Every single cut, I cut the angle, I cut out the window, I cut out the tongue hole, and then I had to cut a strip so I can get it around the tongue. Then I cut down the bottom. When I went to turn this around, it was like a wet spaghetti noodle. It just flopped around and it bent. So I'm temporarily putting a 1x4 there to give it some structure so I can get it up on the wall. I had to break off the screws because they stuck out. When I get this up there, then I got to take that off. Otherwise, it won't fit into the J channel around the window. This is going to be a challenge. I would like to record this, but handling the spaghetti noodle and the camera at the same time, just don't think that's going to happen. So I'll show you once I get it up. And I'll also tell you about all the problems I had. Well, it's up. Ta-da! I finally did it. Oh man, I finally did it. I made a serious mistake. So you'll see a seam, I think, right there. That is my attempt to cover up my mistake. I don't know what I did wrong. I really don't know what I did wrong. But the original panel that I cut to put up there, the tip worked just fine. Went right up to the soffit board. But then it came down like to here. It was terrible. I mean, the angle wasn't even close to the soffit. I talked to Carolyn, tried to figure out what we're gonna do. Do we want to replace the panel, or do you want me to see if I can repair it and make it look halfway presentable? So we talked about it for a while, and we had some scrap pieces. And so I used a scrap piece, but it wasn't quite long enough to match up where the screws are. So you can see the screws kind of fall down. I went ahead and cut the panel, the scrap I had, and that worked out all right. I know where I made my mistake. I should have put a temporary piece here at the bottom and measured my way up. That's what I should have done. Instead of using the window as my reference and putting a level up there. I don't know what my mistake was, but I know that that would not have caused the same mistake. I'm very frustrated. So now we have this terrible looking seam with screws not lined up with the rest of the screws. We've got a little bit of buckling here. Also, we noticed it the other day. What has happened is when I had to push it in to the window, it starts to buckle. It's not that unsightly, but it is noticeable. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. And we've talked about putting a trim over that buckling. Well, I think that's what we're going to do now. Now, Carolyn is just the sweetest person in the world. I said, I'll go ahead and put a piece of trim over it. And she said, why? I don't see a problem. And I said, Carolyn, I really wanted to make something nice for you. It's small, but I wanted it to be nice. And she says, it is nice. And of course, she talked about her past and tried to make me feel better. But I think I'm going to put a piece of trim over that anyways. That way we can get rid of the buckling. the misaligned screws, and that silly seam. And it's not like I got to go buy anything. I accidentally bought this ridge cap here. It was the wrong size. And I think if I cut right here at the ridge cap, right at that seam there, that would give us a nice piece of trim that we could put over that. Never even see the problem. And I think it would kind of break up the tan color somewhat. In the end, I've never claimed to be a professional. I'm not a professional, I'm an amateur. And I've done pretty good so far. I cut 2 panels perfectly, no issues. This third panel, I cut everything, and the window cut out correctly. Everything was correct, it was just the angle. At least now I've learned from my mistake. Well, I hope I can inspire you to work through your mistakes when you're trying to live your dream. Thanks for watching.